A very good evening to everybody present here. Welcome to the Health Basics Workshop series. Um, Hope everybody has had a good day, and thank you so much for taking the time to attend our session today. To conduct the workshop today, we have Ms. Ashita. So, Ashita is an experienced psychologist who has actively been practicing for more than 8 years. Her professional background encompasses working with diverse client populations, including those with neurodiverse backgrounds and individuals from the mainstream community who face behavioral, emotional, and anxiety issues. Her career began as a clinical trainee at Kasturba Medical College and Wenlock District Hospital, where she was responsible for diagnosing conditions and implementing a lot of therapeutic intervention for parents. Subsequently, she has transitioned into a role of an ABA therapist, specializing in providing support to children and teenagers with autism and various neurodevelopmental disorders. Following this, Ashita served as a special educator for 3 years, during which she has gained a lot of valuable experience in designing and implementing academic and vocational training curriculum. She has also spent 2 years mentoring other special educators in their professional development. Additionally, she has held a leadership position in the head of research and vocational department at the ECA Educational and Charitable Trust. Currently, Ashita is the leader of the Emotional Wellness Program at Health Basics. In this role, her daily responsibilities include overseeing counselors and special educators working within the Health Basics team, as well as implementing a comprehensive socio emotional curriculum to benefit the clients and promote emotional well being. So, I will give the space to you, Ashita. You may continue.
Thank you, Laksha, for the kind introduction. Hi, everyone. A very good evening, and thank you for joining in for our workshop on a weekend. So, keeping this in mind, the whole idea, before I begin, I would like to introduce the topic. Over the course of our time working with multiple schools and working with a lot of children over the past, I would say almost a decade, we've come across a lot of students who had a very different approaches in the way they prefer learning, be it a mainstream child, be it a child with any learning gaps or any cognitive deficiencies. One thing we've noticed is that different children have very different rates of learning across the similar classroom at a grade level or section. So this like piqued a lot of curiosity within us to really understand where the learning styles are coming from. So, though a lot of children follow their own preferred styles or methods of learning, individual differences come in the way they prefer to exercise the learning style. So, throughout the session, we will learn what are the three core different learning styles that are different from reading and writing, which is the traditional method. We will learn about visual, kinesthetic, and auditory learning styles. More importantly, we would also throw light on how different children choose to focus on different elements. Like they have the genuine mix and match culture is something that they would apply when it comes to engaging with the curriculum. So I hope this is a very informative topic for each one of you. I'll soon begin. Laksha, please tell me if my screen is visible or not.
Yeah, now it's visible.
1 second. Is it visible full screen now?
Yes, yes.
All right. Thank you for that. So, good evening, everyone, again. So, we need to, today's focus is on the individual styles and how children adapt to different learning styles in the school environment. So, our key agenda is to understand what learning as a concept is in psychology, how different styles of in psychology are understood, how students apply these learning styles on the basis of their psychological thought processes, and lastly, we'll understand learning styles and academic curriculum. So, how children actually apply and interact with the classroom academic curriculum based on the learning styles that they have adapted. So before we begin, I would like to accredit a lot of research and a lot of methodical exercises have been conducted by B.F. Skinner. He's the father of behavioral psychology, and more importantly, he has extensively researched and proven track records on uh, learning ability and learning capacities using reinforcement. The rewards, the punishments, the kind of scheduled reinforcement we talk about is theorized and experimented by B.F. Skinner. So he is also the reason why today we have a lot of homeworks, why we have exams, why we have multiple choice questions, why we have true or false pattern in academics. So I wouldn't say it has started by him. I would say it has been researched and impacted a lot in education due to him. So, according to him, the real problem is not whether machines or whether our technology can think or not, but what if people do. So, keeping that in mind, when we look at the traditional teaching and learning methods, over time, throughout history, we have noticed it has been a very normative format. Normative means it is standardized across culture and geographical area, where you have a standard classroom, a standard board and a chalk or a board or a marker, and you have a set of tables or desks for children, or even if there are no desks or chair, there is a designated area for the child to sit and learn. So this traditional teaching and learning approach has been going on from the last 100 years, to say the least. So what happens here is, when we talk about the traditional teaching methods, we use physical learning materials like pencils, papers, chalkboards. We also have uh, a lot of reliance on basic verbal, delegation of duties and delegation of the concept. The way the concept is being taught in the classroom, and a lot of reliance is there on students to take down notes that can be shared by that is shared by the teacher. However, teaching cannot happen in a very standardized approach, but it is also causing a lot of limitations in terms of uh, the accessibility or the capacity at which the child can learn. So, keeping that in mind, we have teaching and learning with the learning styles. So, teaching with learning styles is very different because we have a lot more wider access to resource materials. Now, we have discarded complete use of chalkboard and uh, chalk piece and blackboard as the traditional norm. Instead, we use markers, rulers, we use sheets of paper, we use a lot of blocks, we use manipulators and objects from the environment, and more importantly, we are not afraid of using any interactional modules like technology that can facilitate concept learning better. Right? Now, what advantage it brings to students is, it helps the child make a choice on how much they would like to learn. It gives a very personalized experience for the students to engage with the subject meaningfully. So there is no complete reliance on the educator alone, but they will also learn to rely on themselves. They will learn to rely on their own requirements and the modules that they would prefer learning. So the load is completely distributed between the teacher, the access to resources they have, and the instructional technology that is available for them. So this creates a more cohesive environment. So when we talk about learning styles are nothing but a different ways or different manipulators or different elements that come in between the curriculum, that come in the classroom, that come between the teacher and student interaction, to not help the child or the set of students to learn and absorb information in a very holistic way. Learning styles are now a way to diversify the standard approach on how the concepts are being taught and delivered to the students. So the first one are the visual learners. Visual learners highly rely on their sensory receptors. They rely on the visual self to learn anything and everything they can from the environment. They like to look at patterns. They like to create meaning and sense of belongingness or sense of existence between different objects or different concepts in a visual manner. So they would like to chart it on the board, or they would like to make figures, or they would like to make mind maps. This is something that we will learn over the course of the workshop. The next are the auditory learners. Auditory learners are different from visual learners. They have a higher attention capacity because they completely rely on their audition skills. So their listening skills are much more higher compared to the visual learners. So they are somebody whom we might see in the classroom as completely engaged to the teachers. They will have a very good eye contact with the board and with the teacher, or they'll have a very good eye contact with their own classmates because they like to engage into the stories. They like to listen to the whole concept, and they create a segment of imagination that helps them process the concept better, and that also helps them with recalling their learned activities. And the next are the kinesthetic learners. Kinesthetic learners try to learn and try to make sense of the concepts by looking at the concept into practice. It is very incomplete and it is not fulfilling for them to see a concept on board or to listen to a concept alone. They would like to see it in action. They would like to make sense of the concept, and then that is how they will absorb it. Now, when we do talk about kinesthetic learning, it is very important as an educator, as a parent, as a special educator, as a remedial instructor, or even a psychologist to not be afraid of kinesthetic learners because they do take up a lot of space. They do not always conform to the classroom rules of maintaining the cordial discipline. They might appear to be impulsive or hyper curious, so they keep moving around, but it is their way of making sense of the concepts. They physically cannot sit or stay in one place without being curious. So if they are curious and if they want to learn, physically they cannot sit in a place. So you might find them being a little fidgety, or you might see them as being distractive, or looking here and there. That is because they're physically being restrained. So such students would prefer taking on lead roles in the class, giving them hands-on activities, asking them to take in charge of the concepts will help them interact with children and regulate the muscle movement or motor movements in a more organized way. So, when we do talk about kinesthetic learners, it's very important to give them that physical space and not to be afraid or not to be worried about the disciplinary actions, that might come across at the cost of learning. So, kinesthetic learners rely on movements to learn meaningfully. They like to use objects or manipulators from the environment to get a hold of what they're learning. They These students or these children love building things and objects. They would like to see the concept that they have in mind outright in the reality, and they like to build things from scratch. They are also students who would like to not stay in one place and grasp information. As they are learning, they would like to walk around, or they would like to engage their hands, or their expressions also, uh, to better assimilate and understand the concepts. But at most times, until especially they're teenagers, young children, young kinesthetic learners love to get their hands dirty. They would love to be out in the open and gain confidence in the concepts by exploring the environment, or spending time in the nature, or visiting monuments or museums. Or more importantly, if you give any science experiments, they would be the first ones to get a hold of the objects or the manipulators to effectively learn. So whatever they're able to recall from the classroom, they would like to see it happen in the environment in front of them. If it is not happening, they would like to make it happen. So that is the core area of kinesthetic learning. So in kinesthetic learning, I have given an example. This is for a higher grade students. So when we do talk about moral sciences, or when we do talk about social studies, we can always give a topic very similar to this. For example, it is illegal to steal, but what if a man steals for his family because they do not have any food to eat? Now, this is a very big moral dilemma. It is a Colesberg moral law number one, where there is a conflict of choice between survival and following the constitutional law. Now, with such a very big decision to make, it is very easy for the teacher in the classroom to keep two signs across the room. The first sign says agree, the second sign says disagree. Now, it is very easy to ask the students to pick a side. They can either go to the agree column, or they can move to the disagree column, where now they are tasked with the second activity to make a point as to why it is okay to steal bread or food to feed the family, or why it is not okay to steal food for the family because stealing is illegal. So there are two tasks here. The children are being asked to move around the classroom, and the children are made to think, and you are expected to make decisions on behalf of the uh, on behalf of the person on whom the topic is about. So what happens here is there is a classroom interaction, as well as there is a classroom movement. When the teacher or the educator allows the students to move around the classroom, students feel that they're being heard, students feel that they're being acknowledged, and the needs and the requirement at that time is being met. So they start leveling with the educator and start reciprocating with a lot of respect. So here, there is a higher chance that the children will cooperate and cordially come up with points of agreement and points of disagreement. The other one is acting out stories. This is one of the most well thought out experiment by Steve Revington. Steve Revington is an educator based out of UK, and for the last 15 years, or more than 15 years, he has been working in one school. He came up with the concept of authentic learning. Authentic learning heavily exercises on acting out stories and performing the concepts in real life. So, for example, a lot of times social studies, English, or even regional language studies might not be very interesting. So, having children perform the characters, for example, in his experiment, he had taken up a play from an English textbook. He had divided children into multiple departments of costume department, script department, acting department, makeup department, and he had given them 5 months to act out the entire scene. and the entire assessment was based on how committed children were to their roles. By the end of the by the end of the term, there was a lot of engagement by the children, but most importantly, the entire school participated by supporting these students, right? Children went beyond their textbook curriculum and they started exploring how relevant the topics are out in the environment. I would suggest you all to take up, some time to read on Authentic Learning by Steve Remington. It's one of the most well thought out and well performed experiments. I wouldn't say experiments, but like an activity that has become a success. And in our classrooms in daily lives also, we can have a particular time set or a particular period set where children are well prepared for performing the concepts in reality in the classroom. What happens is it gives a higher engagement from the students, as well as the curriculum will be better implemented for the students to learn and recall during their examination. The other topic is on role playing historical events. Much similar to acting out stories. Role playing historical events, having a mock trial, helps children better engage with the concept. Now, when we do give them a task on engaging with the topic, or when we do give them a task of being a part of the historical event, gives a creative outlet for the students on how they would like to express this. And that leads to a higher engagement in terms of being interest, showing that interest, taking up responsibility for their own learning, and more importantly there will be a sensible debate that will be a very good outcome out of the entire process of role playing efforts. The next one is map activities. This is especially useful for geography and social sciences again, where we can use different everyday objects like kinesthetic clay. We can use sand from outside. We can create mountains, rivers, hills on a cardboard or those Amazon cartons that we have. Children can bring their own cartons from home and create a live map using things that are already available, on the school grounds. What happens is they will have to look at the actual real map, and they will actually start tracing it in the environment. In that way, they're focusing on the borders, like the political borders. They are looking at the map coordinates. They're able to better understand which country is placed in which region. So here, there does children do not have to rely on rote learning or any traditional method, but here they are into deep. They are focusing on deep learning, and they are mindfully engaging with the concept that has to be taught. The next one, are there any questions so far? Okay, let me continue working. So the next one is visual learning. Visual learning is very different from kinesthetic learning. Here, the child completely relies on vision and completely relies on how they are perceiving the information. For example, whenever they have a passage or whenever they have a very big text, they are organizing it in a sequential order, either based on chronology. Chronology is again a timeline of events, either a sequence, what happens first, what comes next, then what happened, finally, what is the outcome, or it is a procedural orientation. For example, step 1 I have to follow this, step 2 is this, step 3 is this, step 4 will be the outcome of the first 3 steps. This organization method works very beautifully for presenting long answers in their English and social studies. It is even more important in mathematics and science, e- where they have to lay out equations in a procedural format. So, visual learning in the classroom is highly exercised by maximum number of students because it is easy, it makes sense, there is an order and sequence that can be followed, as well as it is easy to recall the curriculum or the concepts. Now, visual learning does not always rely on mind map and mental placing of the order. It can also happen through videos and interactive activities. Videos can reinforce auditory learning and visual learning, whereas interactive activities like creating their own maps, creating their own charts and sheets will help them uh, recall and will help these students place the items in their mind in a much more systemic order. Instead of seeing a mind map, now they get a chance to directly create one. So when they're creating, they're more mindful and the deep work is done in a more semantic order. The next is, in the classroom, to reinforce the learning, we can always use charts, organizers and mind maps. So when it comes to science based learning, using diagrams and charts. Diagrams are we usually have diagrams of different objects like a flower or different body parts or different animals, which are a core requirement, or sometimes you're graded based on that. But apart from that, when they are drawing different chemicals or they're drawing different uh, models that explain physics concepts in a much better way. That will just make it very easy for children to grasp the concept. So here again, diagrams and charts can be used for making concepts very easy, or it can also have an interest based learning over here. So it works in both levels. The next are visual leads. Using animated videos or using animate, simple drawings or simplistic videos that clearly give a instructional direction will create a much more impactful learning. So once if videos or animations are not enough, they can also have simulations in the laboratory. They can have simulations in the environment or home projects where they are accumulating the resources by themselves. For example, a lot of schools have science experiments of building a dam, building a volcano, building a tower, and balancing gravity activities like from grade 5 to grade 10 onwards. So what happens, these activities will help children understand how a certain concept works when they are building or creating by themselves. So this comes under both kinesthetic and visual learning. The next is mathematics. In mathematics, graphs and charts are again a core competency in terms of statistics. But apart from that, when we talk about linear equations, or when we talk about quadrilateral equations, using a bar chart or using a graph sheet becomes much more easier because you're giving a visual representation on what these equations mean. So a lot of times we have done this experiment a few years ago where we have used pizza and we have used marbles to explain fractions in real life. Children were able to relate the missing slices as the parts of the fraction that were gone, and they were using the color of the marbles as a way to understand the volume and the depth of a fraction that was being explained to them at that time. So, not only using graphs and charts for statistics, but also you teaching decimals, fractions, equations can be very useful. The next is language. So, story maps and organizers are very beautiful ways to sequentially teach. Now, the most popular used story maps are what happened first, then what happened next, finally, what has happened. So here, what happens? We are teaching comprehension at a level one, level two basis, where we are teaching children how to make sense of a story. We are not asking character roles. We are not asking their opinions. We are not asking the reason why the character chose to behave in a certain way. Instead, we are teaching them how to logically look at a story. So this is a very old and tried and tested method on uh, sto- uh, called story maps. The other one is called graphic organizers. Graphic organizers are especially useful for children and students who don't really have a strong vocabulary. Children who don't have enough word bank, especially due to language issues or because they have speech and learning, verbal learning challenges. Graphic organizers are very, very useful at that time. Then we have Venn diagrams. Venn diagrams will use relationships, and they will teach different concept relationships between topics. For example, if I take an idea of is cheating a bad thing, sometimes we can teach. Sorry, give me one. Extremely sorry for that. Like I said, graphic organizers can be used for orienting people to different ideas. So, when diagrams usually talk about building relationship between multiple concepts. For example, if we say cheating is wrong and it is not okay to cheat, one idea talks about cheating is wrong versus the other idea says that cheating, there is no concept of cheating, it is a matter of survival. So the relationship between the both will be to what extent is cheating okay and when is it okay to not cross the line of cheating. So Venn diagrams will, visually explore the whole idea, which is very abstract, which is very basic, which requires a lot of words. So that way, Venn diagrams will break down the concept of what is more important and what needs to be explored. Similarly, flowcharts will also organize ideas in terms of sequencing the lesson or sequencing the concept. If we are talking about, say, Cinderella, now Cinderella has a very, very big story, but essentially, if you put it in a flowchart, we can organize the story as a child with the father who lived in a very happy home. Their father gets married to a lady with two daughters. The father passes away. Then we have the stepmother mistreating her stepdaughter, and so on and so forth. We can organize to what is more important. This is also very important and essential for students who don't come to the point when they're writing answers, especially for students who are going on and on around the concept but never reaching the point. It is also easy and very important for students who don't have enough word bank or who do not have enough vocabulary for them. So just putting important pointers and sticking to the basic concept will at least help them get or come to the idea. Now, when we talk about history, history is been perceived as a very unrelatable and a very long subject or a topic. A lot of students do not really relate with history because the events that have happened a long time ago. There has been a complete change in our timeline due to the introduction of technology, due to the convenience that has come over now, the lack of visual settings that were also there at least 2 decades ago. For example, there was no heavy reliance on Swiggy or Instamart or even Blinkit. Even 20 years ago, there was still relevance of history where a milkman would come to the towns and deliver milk, or people would still go outside and purchase vegetables, or times were much more similar because there was no advancement, a drastic advancement that has happened. However, today children or students, young students especially, will have a very difficult time relating to history. So creating a timeline will just make it very easier for them to understand what has happened. They don't really have to make the sense of it, but just make enough sense that events have happened from this date to so this date. The next is infographics. Infographics are nothing but relating the visual object or the visual object to the content. So it could be a chariot, it could be a wheel, it could be a tree, it could be a significant monument. So something that is very important to our culture or something very important to our region, if it is being taught based on the image. So what happens is, even if the child looks at the word saying describe the wheel of Ashoka, what happens is the child will read the wheel of Ashoka and immediately recall the wheel. Now, based on how they have perceived that object versus how they have understood the uh, concept around it, it's easier for them to recall that information. Now, the more popular methods for visual learning across subjects would be color coding. Color coding is again a very interesting activity where children will mindfully make a color code between different ideas. So, if something that is where comes first, they will put yellow color. Then what happens? They'll put brown. Then what happens next? They can put it as a green. If there is any error that they need to rectify or any confusion, then they will mark it as red. The next one is flashcards. Flashcards again are very important because they will only give limited information but accurate information that will help them as a prompt. So, for example, if I have to say freedom of India happened on 15th of August 1947, the event or the incidents in and around freedom of India that was achieved on August 15th, 1947, that information they'll be able to recall because these flashcards are not just information cards, but they also serve as a mental prompt for students. The next one is the multimedia presentations. Multimedia presentations are nothing but creating a virtual PowerPoint like I have created here, or creating a video, creating a animated kind of song, or a music video even where they combine music and audio. visuals together can help them relate or create their comprehension or cohesion of the topic. The last one is the auditory learning. In auditory learning, it is the most evident learning form that educators can notice in the classroom. A lot of students have very high non-verbal communication with teachers in terms of listening. They'll give a very direct eye contact. They follow the movement movement of the teacher as they're covering the topics. They will also have a very good capacity to listen to for a long time. They can take in a lot more information as compared to visual and kinesthetic learners. They have better communication skills because they listen meaningfully. They also have that much better speech and expression skills. And the last is the semantic association uh, that they have between the concepts, between the conversation and listening. They will have a very beautiful skill of how much I need to speak and how much I need to listen based on the amount of information that they have. So a very strong or an added value for auditory learners here is that they have a meaningful engagement with learning in terms of understanding what to say when. They also understand the power of affectation, power of tone, the power of pitch. It also builds their social and empathetic skills, which is just like an added advantage for these students. Now, when it comes to science, auditory learners will usually follow a long explanation. They like to make sense of long verbal explanations and exercise them in their environment. It feels like a kind of an achievement that they're able to put their imagination into reality. The next are audio recordings. It is very easy for audio learners or auditory learners to follow any lectures or any discussions that have happened over a CD or over a podcast, or even while watching videos of it on any edutech based app or even YouTube. So what happens in audio recording is that children are able to follow any lecture, and then while they follow lecture, they try to imagine or recreate the entire concept in their head, something that they really enjoy. And mathematics, though they may have issues with solving visually, but they can solve long verbal problems where they can talk about solving not just equations, but they can solve challenging arithmetic riddle or any functional problems that come around money, that come around time, that comes around managing their what do you say, daily activities or a set routine. So anything that is related to sorting, arranging, and categorizing based on a verbal challenge, it is something that they can solve or create a solution for that. A lot of accountants, a lot of bankers rely on verbal problem solving. It is something that they can do in a very easy and formative way. So when a client does go to them and talk about their problems with finances or talk about their challenges with having a savings account or having any issues with any financial transaction, it is very easy for the accountants or bankers to solve these financial issues there. The other one is math songs and rhymes, especially for younger students. Using days of the week songs, using number songs will help them to associate numbers in a sequential order. The goal of the song and rhyme is not to create a music, but it is to create an association with music. A lot of children like music and they like riddles and rhythm. They associate very easily with rhythms. So when we associate a number or a sequence with rhymes and songs, it becomes easier for them to associate the sequential order. For example, there is a song, there are 7 days, there are 7 days. So there are 7 days in a week. And then the song begins. There is Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So when they elongate and sing the days of the week in a very long way, it's very easy for them to recall the sequence of the sequence, which is the days of the week. Uh, this is for English and regional subjects. Auditory learners love listening to stories, they like listening to passages, they like listening to poems. They especially wait for affectations, they wait for the punctuations, they wait for the stress of certain words or letters because it gives them the joy of listening to words. So they can also understand the tone, the pacing of the words, how the words are expressed, in what volume the words have to be expressed, how much of an expression is appropriate. These are the kind of judgments a lot of children with auditory learning will have as they are, getting hold of English subjects. When we talk about audiobooks, this is also something they look at. They not only learn about the concept, but they also learn how engaging the book has been. So, for example, there was a student whom I was teaching about, getting angry. I was teaching them about daily hassle versus long term stress. I couldn't really explain this to the child without using everyday example. So I just told this child, like, when you have, when you commute from your home to your school, you see a lot of traffic, and it's very difficult to, commute when there is so many road blockages. It is very irritating for the driver to drive that far, but still, they drive and they come back. They come to the school and drop you. But if this continues for a long time, this daily hassle can be stress. The child did not understand much of what I was saying, but he had heard this sentence in a song: the traffic was a state. And then he comes back to me and says, Ma'am, I heard a song which says traffic was a state, and I remembered what you've told me. So he associated the tone and the pitch of the person. The traffic was a state, and he realized what I was trying to tell him was that being stuck in traffic is an example of daily hassle. So this is how audiobooks and poems and songs work for them. They connect two and two together, and they try to make meaning and sense of the things around them. But a lot more students who prefer auditory learning engage even in discussion groups. Having active discussions where giving children a day's time to get the knowledge of the reading material and asking them to give an opinion on the topics will actually promote semantic learning and a very meaningful engagement. Why? Because it not only talks about the way they choose to express, but it will also teach them what are the words they can use, how appropriate it is to channel their emotions and channel their feelings when they are expressing their arguments or when they're expressing their thoughts. This will also teach them a lot of interpersonal and social skills. When it comes to history, again, what happens is storytelling will become the history events become a storytelling event for them. They don't look at historical event as an event, but it becomes like a very big story for them. They like to go back into time and imagine how things have happened. They like to think about how a certain event has taken place. It brings them that much of imaginative joy, and they also start relating those concepts in their present life, where they realize that a lot of things that they history has to offer has not been there in present, and there has been a lot of advancement. So this brings a sense of acceptance into the present life for them. If history cannot be completed in a storytelling way, it is also podcasts and recordings are also a very essential way to bring about uh, the history concepts. There are students. The challenge with history and storytelling is that different auditory learners depend a lot on the tone, pitch, and voice modulation. So, if an educator uses a standard voice or a standard pitch or a standard modulation, it might not sit well with some students, while it beautifully sits well with with other set of students. Some children would like expression in the voice. Some children would prefer, the high pitch and the low pitch to bring some excitement into the audition. So this way, they would like to, change the preference of learning. When it comes to geography, uh, they would like to hear the verbal descriptions of the geographical plane. So asking children to close their eyes and navigate the top of the hill, if an educator is able to describe the mountains, if they're able to describe the plains, if they're able to describe the water, what happens is, for auditory learners, it's a very very big engaging task. And then they also have a lot of songs that can help especially younger children to learn different parts of the world. It could be, distinguishing between a city and a town, a village. It can be used for distinguishing between a river, ocean, and a sea. It Songs can also distinguish between two different countries, or north, south, east, and west. It can also help them learn about time zones. So, again, songs are nothing but an associative technique that can build a relationship between the fact and the tone in which the fact has been delivered. So, with this, I would like to end my presentation. Uh, are there any questions here? Does anyone have any questions or would like to share anything? Okay, thank you everyone. I think we can leave. I'll be here till the end if there are any questions. Thank you everyone for your time.